Welcome back to Locked On Sports Atlanta. It is A to Z right here on Locked On Sports Atlanta. Give us a follow on Twitter at Locked On ATL. I'm at Mark Zinno, MarkZinno. Coming up, we'll have Shovels of Wisdom and a mini SEC preview. That if the top teams falter, who will be there to pick up the slack? We'll get to that coming up before the end of the show. Wanted to take this second segment here today to discuss Georgia. Because as we're getting closer to the beginning of college football season, again, they will open up next weekend, Labor Day weekend, at Mercedes-Benz Stadium against Oregon, a game in which Oregon is getting 18.5 points. I'm taking the Ducks. Sorry. Not because I think they'll win, just because I don't think Georgia will blow them out. But again, different conversation for next week, so we'll get to that. But, I have said repeatedly that I don't think, my money wouldn't be on Georgia to repeat as national champions. It's very hard to repeat. I mean, obviously, as good as Clemson was for a 4-year stretch, they didn't repeat. They got there in back-to-back years, but they didn't repeat. Alabama has repeated, but they're obviously really the only one within our lifetimes that have done it with any sense of regularity, or at least in the BCS world plus. So, it's not an easy thing to do, to say the least. But one of the reasons I have said that I don't think Georgia can repeat is simply because of Stetson Bennett. Now, before everybody gets all up in arms about my hate for Stetson Bennett or, I just don't like whatever. I mean, he's a limited quarterback, folks. I don't think that's an insult to say. I think that's pretty accurate. And we've talked about this before. Alabama has won with limited quarterbacks. Jake Coker was a limited quarterback, right? I mean, Greg McElroy, AJ McCarron, all these guys who didn't get drafted high tells you that they have a limited skill set that doesn't translate well to the next level. I mean, it's pretty simple. I mean, there are scouts that thought Desmond Ridder had a better skill set for the NFL and projected him as a first-round pick. He fell to the third, obviously. But my point is that, Desmond Ridder has a better skill set than Stetson Bennett does. Otherwise, Stetson Bennett would have been getting attention the way Desmond Ridder was and said, okay, he can play at the next level. So I don't think that's an insult to say. I just think it's a fact of the matter. That doesn't mean he's a bad quarterback, and it doesn't mean you can't win with him. It just means he's limited. And because of that, I don't know that Georgia will necessarily adapt to what is a different landscape in college football. Now, Seth Emerson of The Athletic, who's covered Georgia as well as anybody has, put out a column talking about how Georgia's offense can feature the passing game even more in 2022. Part of the reason, again, I don't think that they are going to crush Oregon in week 1 is because of Kirby Smart. Kirby Smart will always have a governor on this offense. It's the bottom line. Until you see different, until I see different, I don't believe for 1 second that the offense is ever going to look any different. I think that there is a certain amount of this is what he believes. He's not going to abandon a running game, especially when he's got a high-level defense, and he wants to grind the tempo of the game down and continue to control it that way, especially against bigger and better teams. Now, when he gets a little bit of a lead against these bigger and better teams, he will flip the script on them and open it up rather wisely, but that's just not his style. And I don't necessarily believe it's like outdated per se, but what I do believe is that if you want to win at a consistent high level in college football today, you need to have an offense that can score and score quick. And you need to have an offense that looks and feels similar to what Ohio State and Alabama put out there every single year. Really fast guys on the outside and a quarterback with a rocket arm and mobility and being able to sort of use the pass a little bit more to set up the run. That's a more effective way in today's game of football and college football to do it. Now, Seth Emerson points out that Georgia has the ability to do it, and they're actually trending in that direction. I'll give you some numbers here in just a second. First, a word from my friends at Coffee AM, the best small batch coffee roaster in America, and it's right here in the Atlanta area. Folks, Coffee AM has some of the best coffee I've ever tasted. It's part of my morning routine. Wake up in the morning, get a Coffee AM K-Cup, drop it in the coffee maker, bam. And I get the most delicious, freshest, best-smelling coffee out there. Their coffees are fresh because they roast them and ship them on the same day or very close to it. That means when they get to you, you can open that box, you're going to smell it and be like, wow, this is amazing. And it is. Because they only roast current crop specialty grade coffees, and you get them from all over the world. Kenya, Tanzania, Sumatra, rainforest, whatever it may be. I mean, there's dozens of flavors out there that you've probably never even tried from places you've never even heard of, and they're all amazing. It's organic, it's fair trade, direct trade, specialty crafted blends of espressos, coffees, teas, and gift sets. It's all there at coffeeam.com, and it's roasted right here in your backyard. Here's what you do. Go to coffeeam.com/locked on today. Take a look at all of the coffees, teas, and gift sets, the full menu. That's coffeeam.com/locked on. And use the promo code locked on at checkout to get 15% off your first order of coffees, teas, and gift sets. That's coffeeam.com, the best small batch coffee roaster in America. Okay, let's get back to Georgia here and some of the numbers that predicate that say they may be able to start to throw the ball a little bit more. And these numbers are all focused on the tight ends. Why? Because Georgia probably has the best tight end group in the country, led, of course, by Brock Bowers. If you look at it, the percentage of plays with two tight ends in 2019 was 26.8. By 2021, it was 51.7. That FBS rank went from 51 to 8th in America. Now, those aren't just blocking plays with tight ends, right? I know Georgia runs a lot, so you have double tight ends, so you get more blocking. Nope, these are drop back percentages with 2+ tight ends. In 2019, they were 23.9. In 2020, they were 28.2. In 2021, they were 40.1% of two tight end sets where they passed. That FBS rank went from 97 to 82nd up to 30th. Okay? Snaps per game with tight ends lined up wide. Now you're starting to get a little bit more into the modern day football that we've been talking about. Okay, in 2019, it was 3.2, elevated to 4.1 in 2020, and then 7.4 in 2021. Right? That's 7.4 snaps per game with tight ends lined up wide out. So clearly, they are going to use tight ends effectively. And I don't think there's any doubt of that. But here's the rub, and this is what I will always put back on you. Tight ends aren't meant to separate down the field. Tight ends don't score 85-yard touchdowns without a lot of mess-ups on the defensive end. And typically because they don't run 40-yard dashes. That's why. They're sort of bigger, a little bit slower, and easier to be brought down, so to speak, in the open field. The Jackson Smith and Jigbas of the world, those guys on the outside, they're hard to come by, and they're incredibly tough to defend. And they force a defense into very compromising positions where they have to make some really hard choices. Do I want to go with this guy, or do I want to go with that guy? And in reality, again, this isn't all about Stetson Bennett. This is more philosophical for me than anything else. This is more about if Georgia is going to, and Kirby Smart is going to allow that sort of game to develop. Now, again, Georgia doesn't have the talent of Ohio State or Alabama at wide receiver. I get it. You can't just invent it. You can't just make it there if it's not there. Do they have bad wide receivers? No. They ain't got no preseason All-Americans out there, at least not yet. So this is the one thing that if Georgia was going to do, they'd have a much better chance at winning a national championship. You need to play a flawless game. In fact, 2 flawless games in the college football semifinal and the national championship against high-level teams like Alabama or Ohio State, which you may end up seeing both of them, by the way. You have to play nearly flawless football against offenses like that. And if you don't, and your defense isn't on point and they make 1 or 2 mistakes, that could be the difference in a game. Because again, remember, let's go back to it. What was it? I think it was a 5 or 6 point game? I think it was 18-13 in the national championship with 5 minutes left before, Georgia broke one and then a pick six that made the game look, not even close. So let's not have revisionist history. Again, that was a close game for 3.5 quarters in the national championship. And you need some mistakes. And when it does, the game looks like a blowout. So there's that. But again, I say all this to remind you that Georgia's going to be very good this year. And there's no reason to believe they won't be one of the 2 or 3 teams that are likely going to make the college football playoff. And it may come down to Georgia beating Alabama in the SEC championship game, or vice versa if the other one isn't undefeated. So, yeah, again, and don't forget about the SEC championship game, the way that Alabama kind of dominated that game. That game is still out there for somebody against Georgia. And offensively, they didn't play their best. All right. Coming up next, Alabama and Georgia, the class of the SEC. But if they falter, who is there to pick up the pieces in the SEC? We'll do that next right here on A to Z on Locked On Sports Atlanta, free on YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast, search Locked On Sports Atlanta.